so Janjo Bado Dane Jansoji Davi Jogi Sumange Rola Benjes Mangan Rola Shu Sange Jolan Zoge Jonala Janjo Bado Dane Jansoji Davi Jansogi Sonange Rola Benjes Sangen Rola Shu Sange Jolan Zoge Jonala Janjo Bado Dane Jansoji Davi Jinzogi Bezonange Ndola Benje Sange Ndola Kangi Tuzi Nizune Dawa Tangi Bambe Jire Dambe Chune Tenzamba Kodan De La Chate Aya Danga Zongo Tenden Sugi Rwa Shashan Yamero Chidan Tanda Sheye Didang Zada Tende Yala Chungi Kwa Kuzi Girimba De Shege Yore Chezan Tade Tsawa Shiragi Rabchi Nishu Tsarubi Diginala Yenla Chungin Korte Sung Rabchi Choke Badala Yenla Chungin Dele Tarwe Tarba Taba Kandis Tab Kore Saji Desung Tarba Tobala Nye Bata Ta Tongi Toko Bate Sung Ta Rabchi Nishu Tsashibada Tsashiba Shiraba Dele Dene Kanyisana Tongi Seyade Tenjungu Tenjunzu What the nation is that Sundan, those kind of Subare. Chilata.
So we're here on page 32 in the Tibetan, and what is that? Page 18, I guess. Is it 18? 18 in our translation from Christoph. And so here we are in a chapter where His Holiness is talking about the 12 links of dependent arising. And that means he's talking about the different stages, how we are circling in cyclic existence. Yeah, so this is happening here in chapter 26. And in other chapters, it's talking about how to attain liberation, and also how in order to attain liberation, you definitely have to realize emptiness.
That's that the Rabji Nistaruba Shabala, that on the Shabana Shinshane, Tongi Sedera, Tombani Sedera, the name Courage of the Ketchamare, Tongila Tasam Gonsum Chiade, Tunda Courage Shadow, Jibukar to the Ketchamare, Ketchamare, Tangarazo Gugi, let a new savage to catch our race. Otsuka Doctor Lashina, catch him door. Let a new savage to catch our race. Kunze Dishina? Tanda Rabchi Dina Lala, Rabchi Nishu Tsaruba Dina Lala, Marie Tribe Young Sisters Shana de Masun Charwa. Dine, what the Alatamudicuna?
So here in this chapter, it says, in this new section here, starting on page 32, His Holiness starts talking about this chapter 26. And here somebody might have the question, why is it important to realize emptiness, or to understand about emptiness? How is emptiness important? And so what that means is that we are studying, it means we listen to, and that means we're studying about emptiness, and we reflect on emptiness, and we meditate on emptiness. So why would we engage into all these activities? Why would we do this? By doing this kind of activities, what kind of meaning or aim can be achieved? And so the answer is that we have in our own continuum karma, and we have afflictions. And we are needing to realize emptiness in order to clear away all these karma and afflictions out of our continuum. So this is kind of, in a nutshell, the answer why we need to make effort with regard to emptiness, that we listen to it and reflect on it and meditate on it. So therefore, it is very important to deal with this topic of emptiness. And so therefore here, His Holiness is now commenting on this chapter 26. And so in this chapter, you have here as a first verse here, obscured by ignorance. That's all what it says in the Tibetan actually, but the whole verse is obscured by ignorance. One performs the three actions that lead to rebirth and its various destinations. Yes.
아, 다들 인데 말이 집에서라데 양시 실시는 지지 송도 대가송어의 말이 배서 당 알아줘 랑도르가 내 차상지 디바레스 말이 집에서 다들 디바 인도 가나서다 차당 셈라 소베 뉴무 남랑 되게 되게 용 그래서 차당 셈라 소베 뉴무 남랑 되게 되게 용데 되네 레 냠바 되게 싸용 그래서 다레 냠바도 싸바 인데서 네 타마 되네 코스 타면 받지 용하지 도스가라 연구야래 깨와스 따라 차셔나 양시 세라 라드 양시버 깨와랑바스 와 규대가된 아마운도 친사바 제 제수 단 지부도 요야 다 쳐봐래 생소시와
And so it says literally here, by being obscured by ignorance, there is again birth, or the word is yangsi, which is one of the way to say to take birth again. It means again existence. Yeah? So it says here obscured by ignorance, and then in the end it says that lead to rebirth. That's all what's going on in this first line of the Tibetan. So Geshe is talking about the words directly. Yeah. So it says that we are obscured by ignorance. So this is talking about that we are obscured with this whole topic of what is to be adopted and what is to be abandoned. So this is here the ignorance that we are talking about. And because this is the case, we are in this kind of obscured state. Therefore, all the different afflicted minds of attachment and aversion and so forth are generated. And once this has been generated, we engage into actions while having this afflictions present. So we are doing negative actions and accumulate those. And once we have accumulated these kind of negative actions or this kind of activities, there will be unlimited samsara ripening from that. So this comes about in this sequence. And so this is what it means here when it says, because we are obscured by ignorance, there is again existence, or yangsi. So Yangsi means exactly this. Yang means again, and Siba is existence. So it means like that out of this ignorance, as a result, there is again taking birth. Yes.
대체 다드네 말이 별랑도르겠네 내로 통해 믹틱돼 있으나 땅 하나도 차삼 군숨 가 제바 이네양 되네 땅 하나도 퇴바 제바 이네라 퇴바 남다지 마신 바제 최고도라 상로시 담바 이네 삼바데지 딱딱 공합하게 뭐좀 맞제 공지견에 약구치 뭐좀 맞제 다 된다 탕제되네 지금 노초의 중재, 두자되게 중재, 야가 되게 뭐 중재, 자상 랑자당 도시기 내루 내 되게 탐제된 머리에 뒤제. 타도나 나라 저기 샘기 가소라다 내루 통하라 뒤제. 다 내루 통하라 뒤바 인데서 뒤바 뒤로 믹틱스라다 데라다. 내로 통화가 뒷 되는 고편식을 내야 됐어. 내가 되네 되네 갈리 집에 된데도 와도 그렇잖아다 되네 고아세 타면 용당데 두스카라 용구야 그래서
And it says here further on, this ignorance, this is a commentary by Sonis, this ignorance obscures our vision regarding the mode of abiding of what to undertake and what to abandon. Yeah, so what to engage and what to abandon. So it says here we are in this state being obscured by this ignorance, and the effect of this is that when we engage into listening and reflecting and meditating, so any of these forms, it doesn't turn out well because we are obscured in this way. So if we are listening, then we are not completely or correctly understanding what is said. When we are reflecting, again, when we reflect about the Dharma, of course, then we also do not get very deep or get very far with it. And also when we engage in meditation, then nothing much comes from this meditation. So this is all because we are obscured by this ignorance. So instead of all these actions turning out very well, almost like the opposite of that comes about. So in other words, we are not achieving a very good form of this kind of listening, reflecting, and meditating. And so this is all because we are in the state of being obscured by ignorance with regard to what is to be adopted and what is to be abandoned. And so this obscuration of by ignorance, this obscuration by ignorance ultimately is talking about that we are obscured such that we do not see the final mode of abidance of phenomena. Yeah, so this is the meaning of that our eyes are obscured here, and so because of that, we are ending up in this samsara, in this cyclic existence, and so that means that we are in a state where we are continuously accumulating, how to say, projecting karma that brings us to again and again into this kind of rebirth within samsara. And so, on the basis of this projecting karma, then bit by bit, all the 12 links unfold, and the whole of samsara comes about.
nangba sila intita nangbe ki che changeni nanda nga nangba yinsigi nanda nangbe dunda la shubha si lagui nanda tanda nangba siya di dine le gyundre ki namsha chi yana gyudan dribi namsha di kelen chigir mangda chigi jigdi chibabo lakunjo sura chiga soba di yan nanya kelen chigi ya mares 다들 맞아 봐 인들 나라서 시바 코아데 안 칸데스 쇼어래 쇼어 냥데데 칸데스 용고야래 베서라도 시바 코아데 라랑게 코코치기 줄라데네 쇼어래 쇼어 냥데스데 오다 돈다 냥데 두치기 줄라데네 어 오다 페나 타토나 동바니라 터바다 삼바다 공바체바라 때네 되네 쇼냥데스데 요야레스잖아 다 딘디시드야요레스로
And so when we use the word Buddhist, yeah, so when we say I am somebody who is studying the Buddha Dharma, or you're saying I am a Buddhist, or you say I'm following Buddhist tenet systems or philosophical systems and so forth. So such a person necessarily is somebody who is accepting the cause and effect of actions or cause and effect in general, as opposed to somebody saying that things come about because there's a creator, like a highest God that created the world and so forth. So a Buddhist would not accept that. Yes, the Buddhist accepts instead of a creator God the presentation of cause and effect. So this is true for all the states of samsara and all the states of peace or of going beyond sorrow, nirvana. So samsara comes about by its own causes. Yeah, due to certain causes and conditions coming together, there is samsara, and then also the pacification or peace, gone beyond sorrow, comes about by its own causes, and this is especially causes that are destroying the root causes of samsara. And this is especially talking about that you get an understanding of emptiness by way of listening to teachings on emptiness and then reflecting on that and then cultivating or meditating that.
나도자 다 코치기 규타와데 다 마리바스데레스 마리베 차바숭고야레스 제단 알아서 셈만두와스 셈둘마토와데 다슴 뒤에 토랑아 저 베자마샤바 대긴그래 제단 되게 셈만두와래 만두와쇼데 알아서 셈만두와데 당도라네 데레샤와게 말해 가인스나 가인스나 알아서 삼아 랑신기 동해 면도 바래 과 랑신기 백왔다 당분에 대원대 바래 당분에 백호라 아 동해 면도 바래 이내양 너베 대와데 주다 깨 주발라 때네 영국을 여봐 인데서 된 대바나 신지 마죠나죠 면도베 동해데 코란 규기 마고치 여봐 인데서 규기 되게 빵 고고야래 제가 규기 되게 매바 마스베 깽게 되네 가서 면도베 동해데 용고야래스 제가 고 규단 지부스에 땅 알아서 나가 용서가 켜라겠지. 아주 남게 균도 샤게 레 균데 세네즈 샤데 뭐 대시도는 샤게 요레스 봐.
And the very root cause of samsara is ignorance. So it is this ignorance kind of that creates samsara. It comes about, it's made by ignorance. And another way to express this is that as long as you have a mind that is unsubdued, or as long as you're not able to subdue your mind, then this samsara will also continue. So that means the path or the practice will be that you have to make effort with regard to actually subduing your mind. If you are just accepting this unsubdued mind, then things will just continue and nothing will change, and there will be no end to samsara if you just accept and take on this unsubdued mind that you have right now. So, as a general situation, we have that naturally we want to experience happiness and we don't want to experience suffering. Yeah, so this is something that is with us from the very beginning. This is kind of in our nature. We want this is what we want. We're looking for happiness. We look for states where we are free from suffering. So therefore, happiness is something we are looking for, that we are wishing for, but this happiness comes about by way of very specific causes and conditions. Yeah, so these need to be accumulated or need to be engaged in, need to be set so that this effect of happiness can come about. But as we are not engaging in that, then happiness does not come about for us because the causes have not been set. And in the same way, we also want to be free of suffering. So suffering has its own causes. So these causes need to be abandoned. Yeah? If you abandon these causes, then indeed there will be no such suffering. But as we are not doing that, we are ending up experiencing suffering, although we don't want to experience suffering. So that already makes clear that this topic of cause and effect is very, very central, very important, and all different Buddhist schools, Buddhist denominations accept cause and effect, and it's a very central topic. So that's why it's a topic that is also very often explained and talked about.
예자 단 도나드니 셈 만두에 견데 나라즈 셈 만두에 견데 드네 머리방 미시베 왕게 용구여 같이 아 머리방 미시바스데 가네 용구도 없을라데 나 란도가 내데 시에게 탑시 마셔봐 되는 용구여 그랬다 셔라 터바도 삼바 공 마셔봐 디겐게 머리바디 용구여 그랬다 시에고야데 마셔베 겐게 좋아 시에고야데 매서 마셔베 겐게 되네 와다 머리바디 용구 대왕게 다 세만도가 탐제 용되게 하래 세만도고 왕게다 세만도 왔을라도 차방 센다 용은 남라 되게 라라위야래 대기에는 다 가르쳐가 내 되게 사만시기 요래 내 되게 제와라 때네 땐 지고 코아세들다 두스카라 요야디 두스라 용고야래
So in a nutshell, um, the fault of with regard to us experiencing the situation here is that we are not are coming from. Mhm. What Geshe was saying is that, in a nutshell, that our unsubdued mind is making us all kind of problems, and that we have this unsubdued mind is because we have this ignorance or this lack of knowledge or lack of understanding present in our mind. So now somebody might say, so where does this ignorance come from? Yeah, if this is where everything else comes from, where does the ignorance come from? So this ignorance, is not understanding correctly, is coming from us not knowing what is to be adopted and what is to be abandoned. And this is, and we're not knowing this because we never made the effort to understand that. Yeah, we have not relied on the methods that bring about an understanding of what is to be adopted, what is to be abandoned. In other words, we have never engaged in listening to this presentation, reflecting on it, and then cultivating that. But this is actually something that we need to understand. We need to get this understanding, and this will only come about by effort. Yeah, so we really need to engage in this with effort. And because we have not done this up to now, because of this, we are experiencing all the different sufferings. We are in all these different states of unsubdued minds. What is an unsubdued mind? It means it talks about the afflictions. We have all the afflictions arising from that. From the afflictions, we accumulate then karma in an afflicted karma, and then on that basis, we are staying in samsara.
계산 셈 먼저 견데게 세월라 셈도 연대게 두고야 에스 다 셈도 연대게 나로나 가서 단다 값 보거데 처탄저 런신게 똥바니 세대게 내지 대셔고야레스 똥바니 세게 내지 대셔 셔발라 강기 똥배 똥바니스 강기 똥 똥주데 강기 똥바레스 내지 대 셔고야 개심 못 찾아요레스로
And so, we have this faulty state of having having all these faults from an unsubdued mind, and then in order to get rid of that, we need to think about the good qualities of the subdued mind, and then we need to achieve these good qualities, which is the state of a subdued mind. So in order to attain that, we have now actually the opportunity, because in order to attain this, we have to think about or become knowledgeable about, listen to teachings and so forth, reflect on that, and cultivate the topic of emptiness. And so this is something we need to understand. So therefore, when we hear that we need to understand emptiness, the question should arise in us, well, emptiness, empty of what? Yeah, so we need to also come up with an understanding. What is this emptiness or absence actually talking about? What is empty of what, or what is absence?
아데제 다데 와데마 셰규체 다다몬 아도도 쓰르상다 때난 안조 메즈치기 나와라스 나라즈 메즈디기단 덴바지 게 고고예나 메즈디기 용야기 탑시 디게데 마샤나 메즈디기단 덴바디 용마르바스
So all of this will be discussed more obviously in the text, and means comes below in greater detail. But in general, even if we just think about one life or the present life, if we want to achieve happiness and joy in this life, then we need to engage into the methods that bring that about. We need to engage in the methods that bring about happiness and joy in this very life. If we do not engage into these methods, we will also not the happiness will not have the happiness and joy of this life.
제당 안조 메즈디기단 덴바 델라 디기단 덴바지 용야 델라 델라 몽송바이나 다 델라 몽송나 데이터 디기단 덴바지 용야 규드 주마셔 바라바스 데 규드 주마셔 왕게 다 가르쳐 그래서 메즈기부드 용 말했다 요야 말았고
So even just thinking about this very life, yeah, the happiness that can be experienced in this life, that is depending on certain causes and conditions, and therefore certain kind of methods that you apply in order to attain this happiness of this life. if you're obscured with that, if you're in the dark with that, if you don't understand this kind of methods, then also you cannot engage in these methods and cannot achieve the happiness and joy of this very life. Yeah. So therefore, you need to work on understanding these methods.
제가 저 미지 되게 나라라 기부 용액의 채도 미참아 충충간에 지금 라프란 담아다 되셔줘야 너네 야 첨부샤는 가치는 배 로중체 통보지 간을 채는 줘야 됐다 가래지도 지게 알았어 미지 되게란 내 맞지 가래지도 지게 알았어
So therefore, in our life and also in the life of people around us, you can see that from a very young age, we are already going to school. We're already getting education. And then as we grow up, then we might get into higher and higher education and make more effort with regard to education. So why are we doing that? We are doing that because we want to achieve the happiness and joy of this very life.
제가다 미시바서다 참 많고 쉬우지 해봐자 나라도 충전에 되내야 되는 로종 림바 많고 제인데 미시바 많고 제 세계 셰제 누구여다 토마 얘기를 하시나 이 신기하마 되네 갈래갈래 얘기를 시 되네 야르 내내 많고 셰게 탑시 된대질 않는 누구야레스 길이 싸바지 정기 바이나야 길이디 고 당보도 신기하 말았어 고시에라도 매주지 고도 왔어
And so the point the Geshe is making here, or the text is making here, is that there is a great many forms of not knowing or lack of knowledge. Yeah. So we are going to school from a young age in order to get rid of certain lack of knowledge. Yeah. So first we don't know much, and then we go to school, and then more and more of our lack of knowledge is eliminated. And so this starts even with not knowing how to write or not knowing the letters and so forth. So you start from first not knowing this at all, and then making effort of a long time, things get better and better and better. Yeah? So that you follow a certain kind of path in the sense of a certain kind of process, and you get better and better with this. And this not knowing with regard to writing, for example, is eliminated. And the same thing you can also say with regard to a language, a foreign language that you want to study. So first, you don't know nothing about this foreign language, but then you make effort and you come to actually be able to speak this language and know this language.
सब खुश
Does everybody understand clearly? Geshe is asking.
We all
I
know.
have just one comment. If you could be both in the view, that would be great for people who are asking to see Geshe-la.
I'm sorry?
People are asking to see Geshe-la when he talks, so if you could be both in the view, that would be fantastic. Thank you so much.
But you do understand us clearly, no?
Yes, perfect. Perfect.
아유 어떠셨어? 야 나도 씨 다들네 제가 가르쳐버렸으나 란자다 도르샤스다 란자들라 냠니제 그 림바들라 림바 먹고 쉬우지요 봐 레균들의 차셔나면 당보대 차샤바이나 미기워 주유츠름 승부이나 미기워 인백이 쭉 첨부지 쉽게 시켜라 디레레네 송에 계셔보도 미기주봉츠름스 미기워 주들라 깨만 오지 따자되는 미기워 주디 가수라다 출신도 송해하게 되니 아다 추름디 계시면 쉬워지나다 랑도그네 대 대라 마모아시 어디에 탑시 제고도 왔어
So when we talk about things that need to be adopted and things that need to be abandoned, that actually is the practice. The practice is to adopt certain things and to give up on other things. And so this kind of practice has a great many different stages. Yeah? So if we just take the example of cause and effect of actions, so it starts already with the ethical discipline that abandons the 10 non-virtuous actions. Yeah, it starts there. And so what you need to do here is you need to become knowledgeable about what are these 10 non-virtuous actions, and you need to understand the faults of these 10 non-virtuous actions. You need to see the faults. And on that basis, you become motivated to actually give up on them as is advised, or in accordance as it should be. Yeah. So in other words, you have to keep a perfect or a functioning level of this kind of ethical discipline, abandoning 10 non-virtuous actions. Yeah. So in this way, we need to engage with these teachings on what is to be adopted, what is to be abandoned in an unmistaken way.
제당하죠. 란도르게 내 시에게 탑시치고 그랬을라데. 란자 가래 도샤 가래스. 란자데 단다까 드리셰데 가래 코네 시기 알았을라데. 나라서 냐는지 리버 탐절 게 시기 알았어. 디셰인데 베라차샤바이나 란자다 도샤 슬라인데 베나 메기 죽은 거 쓰는 차샤바이나 미기와 주세데 도샤레 대포의 수점대 랑자레스 코니니기 드부 베타 카가레스
제부.
드부드 카가레스 다 텐데 임바인데 드부 상하데 가서 드부 상하데 영화에 쳐도 미게 주분 거 수점대 송고레스 라 드부 냠바데게 소소라 마용을 쳐도 미게 와데 문진셔자 빵고레스 계시셔요.
So the point is that we need to become knowledgeable or have a good understanding about the objects to be adopted and the objects to be abandoned. And in order to become knowledgeable and have a good understanding, we need to engage into methods for understanding what is to be adopted and what is to be abandoned. So that means we need to be clear, we need to have a clear understanding what is an object to be adopted, what is an object to be abandoned, and this can be applied to all the different stages of practice. Yeah, you can think in this way, and you need to do this with regard to any level of practice. So if we talk again about the ethical discipline that abandons the 10 non-virtuous actions, then the 10 non-virtuous actions is the object to be abandoned. And the ethics that is abandoning these 10 non-virtuous actions is the object to be adopted. And so with regard to these two things, this specific object to be abandoned and this specific object to be adopted, they have different results. And what we are looking for is for the more positive, the positive form of result of these two, which is the one from the ethical discipline. And so we want to engage into activities in order to ripen these positive results. And in order to do that, we have to keep the ethical discipline that abandons the 10 non-virtuous actions. And when we think about the negative or unwished for results of the object of abandonment, which is the 10 non-virtuous actions, then we understand that this is a suffering result, and we don't want to have that. So this is that object that we want to abandon. And we abandon it by way of the ethics that abandons the 10 non-virtuous actions.
와다 드리기 란도르네 두 마시바 몽베 셩어도 줘야 돼 타르도나 데코나니라 몽베 몽바 디왕 쳬바레스 다 덴데기 데코나니라 몽베 몽바데 시바 코아 동해 탐 시바 코에 나로라 다 코아스랑 알아서 내가수 동해 탐제 용액이 자와 치게디 어디 자와 치게디 가래서나 데코나니라 몽베 몽바 데레스 텔랑아즈 머리 파스라게 텔라 야와라 지니치나 간사가 던지다 셔가 던지스잖아 야와니 치기요
So again, we need to understand this whole situation about what is to be adopted, what is to be abandoned. And right now we are in a state where we are confused, or we are in the dark with regard to this kind of presentation. So we are under the power of that darkness. We are under the power of this confusion or this not knowing. And within all of that, especially, we are under the power of that confusion that is not understanding suchness. So this lack of understanding of suchness, or of reality, if you like, of suchness, is actually the very root of all the suffering that we are experiencing in the existence, which is cyclic existence, this kind of existence. So all the suffering within that kind of state has as its root this lack of understanding with regard to suchness, or thatness is also called. And so this not understanding of thusness, that's called ignorance. And ignorance has two types. One is a grasping for a self of person, and one is a grasping for a self of phenomena.
我也在当不干做，俺爹就这些讲呢，本来干啥个当子的，去个当子是，我的顶这个当子你的我学不了，大多准备，怎么你不得，说大多这个真给要的是，干啥大多这个真给要的，干啥的碰不大多这个真给要的，你真给要的，干啥个当子学个当子是得来是，顶这个呢，俺干啥是干这些的，干啥是说的来是。 干啥事的搞啊也，说了大个也是了，意思，俺那是德西碰碰地，德西姐姐，对了，俺那是同样个德西碰碰多啊，碰碰的德西的了，对了对呢，碰碰的了，看了明大个呢，他多半怕大个呢，他等到对了 k i s t o p 是大个呢，他，哎，对呢，拉法是大个呢，他，搞着呢，可明个怕。 민기 파다 좀 다랑 간사레스 간사스의 신 되니 대 멤버지 제가 줘야 요 말에 간사스 코파 아 풍부되다 될라 때네 따바 좀 다랑 간사레 뭐도지기 간데스다도 제가 줘야 요 말에스
네.
알레
간데스다기도.
간데스다나 간데스다도 너는 민 간데스다도 사다 대 제가 줘야 요 말에스
Okay.
파다 좀 다나 민다 좀 지를 마도시라
Dang la Zellner, dann Ragimindus.
그래서
So let's talk about this first. Geshe just made this distinction into a grasping for a self of person and grasping for a self of phenomena. So we have here this kind of graspings, and the question is, or this apprehending something in a certain way. So the question comes like, what is apprehended in this way by this grasping for a self? So in the case of grasping for a self of person, what is apprehended or what is grasped as a self is a person, and in the case of grasping for a self of phenomena, it is the aggregates. The aggregates of a person are grasped in this way. And so then the question comes, okay, now we talk about a person. So what is a person? So the person is, you could ask like, what is a person? Where is a person? And so forth. So this person actually can only be stated with regard to a basis of imputation. So the basis of imputation with regard to the person is the aggregates. And in dependence on this base of imputation, the aggregates, either by way of using a name or term or by conception, by a concept, you are imputing the person on this basis of imputation. So, for example, you impute on the basis of imputation the respective aggregates, Christoph, or you impute Rafa, and so forth. Yeah, and so this person is that what is merely imputed by a name or by a term, and different from that, if you would look for the person that is anything else than just being imputed by name, then you would not find anything. Yeah. So even if you would ask, like, so where exactly is this process of imputation? Yeah, and you would look for that, you would also not find anything. It is just that the person is merely imputed on the basis of imputation, the aggregates.
야, 키스톱스긴난다. 라파스라고 있는다. 다니엘스라고 있는다. 된다. 그 민따바 대 말씀체 아니 그 전에 전화 무시 소리가 가와야래서 소리 치러. 두스가 세간도나 되니 니야가 말해. 두 세간도나다. 그 딱된 세간도 부여라. 딱된 세나 두스가 니야가 말해. 소리. 풍부다 때나 따바 섬세다 다른 거 침. timber chebuyares.
So this, like Christoph or Rafa or Daniel, is something that is merely imputing a name. Yeah, there is this person, and it is there by merely imputing a name. So then when you understand that there has been a name has been imputed, but you say like, yeah, so that's all right, there was a name imputed, but what is the person really? Yeah. Apart from that, there has a name being imputed. What is the person really? Where is this person? And you look for the person in this way, you don't find anything. Yeah. So all of these persons, like Christopher, Rafa, or Daniel, are merely imputed by name, and that's it. Yeah, there's nothing else to be found. So technically, this is saying when you're looking for the imputed meaning, you don't find anything. Yeah, if you try to find the imputed meaning, that you don't find anything. So the person is in the end just that. It is that which is merely imputed by way of a name or a concept on its basis of imputation.
치버치장 가야스랑 내 류스라바이나. 내 류스라다 내 류디 내게 류기 차셔 다가라 차셔 되게라 때나 따바 삼저레 마도지기 차셔 되게나 류디 술었다게도 누가 세간도는 라예요 말했다.
So in the same way, you can also ask or refer to the phenomenon my body. Yeah. So my body is also merely imputed independence on all the body parts. Yeah. So it's independence on this on these parts that you can that you can posit this such a body. And so therefore also the body is merely imputed on these body parts. So again, if you're not satisfied with that and say like, so, okay, it's merely imputed on the body parts, but where in this body parts or which of the body parts is actually my body, you will not find anything.
다 세대 다 세대 상탄엔다 내 류스 상탄엔다 차셔리 돈도 두고 제가도는 차셔 강기 된도 샘게 된도 제네니 많이 류기 된도 제네 많이 류기 차셔게 된도 제네 많이 오다 다 되네 류스니다 자와 켜는 매 되겐시기 다 되면 어 데메데션게 다 되면 나 근데 임바인데 되게 류슨 되게 날 제가도나 많이 다음에 다 가르치나 어다 류슨 될라 되네베 민빠 쌈치 레샤스 차셰 될라 되네 내 류스 딱 쌈치 데레샤스 어다 미디 미디 제바 보모디 차셰 보모디 제마셔스도스 부디 가르사다 제 칼로로 제 제부스고로 칼 근데 두스라나 대 차셰기 때도 제가도 지부디 지부 차셰데 지라야네 고 수기 차셰데다 때나 따와 점제레마도 다 자원데 라야네
제바디 당 지부인 디 닥섬레스.
다감 다나 다 강바를 차시는 강바데 강베토 강베 지바 강베 고지군 누스가를 체인 저는 강베 차셰라 때네 강바스 따와 점지 마도지기 강바데 야라야네 다던다 낭좀 다랑 뭐 차셔 될라 때는 딱서 다른 게 심바지야라 마도 되네 뒤 강을 제간도나 라예요 말했어 this maybe gen기 딘종 레샤 마도 때밤에 라왕게 두샹게 민두스 저는 송에 되다
Okay, so when we talk about the self, then, yeah, or the I, the self, in the same way we can also talk about my body and so forth. Then, or we can talk about any phenomenon really. We can also talk about each and every part of the body and so forth. So let's go back to the self, to the self. So when we look for the self within the mind, or within the body, or within the body parts, we cannot find it. And one might have the idea, so maybe this self is actually something that exists totally separate from body and mind. That's why I cannot find it there, because it's totally unconnected. But that's also not the case. Yeah, the self is always coming in connection with body and mind. And so when you look for the self, in that with which it has a connection with the body and the mind, or the body parts and so forth, yeah, when you look for it, you cannot find it. And from this you understand that therefore it is merely imputed. Yeah. So that comes from that you cannot find it in any phenomenon. So therefore, it dawns that it's therefore merely imputed. So another example is that you have a very beautiful woman or a very handsome or impressive man or something like this. So also this beauty or being handsome and so forth there is also merely imputed. And you will not find this beauty or being handsome in any part of that body over there or something like this. Yeah. So it is not findable there. So that's an example. Another example is a house and the parts of a house, like a door or walls or a window and so forth. So house is also merely imputed on these different parts of the house. And if you would look for go beyond that, a merely imputed house, and would try to find the house, look for it and try to find it, there is nothing to be gotten. Yeah? So therefore, this house and all the other examples we were talking about, Geshe now used this word, are a mere appearance or are merely imputed. And so when you come so far, then you come to this insight that, oh, actually, all these things are dependent arisings. And they do not exist unrelated to anything or independent from anything.
아야 다들 내지 가사기 던지다 최고 던진 세트라 머리 봤을라 가사기 던진 세트기 가사 세야디 나라도 단다 로라 낭잠치 마다 민도 왔어 아야 다 풍부라 때나 따바 잠치다 마도 민도 왔어 민도데 가사 랑원에 가사 던지 머리 봤어야디 가르치 시기도 왔으나 가사디 딱전 째네 니규 봐서 진되게 다 된다 가사 대 풍부라 때문에 라운지리 라운 원에 두샤게 진되게도다 아 셴라 라마레베 라운 두샤바지 대체가 더즈데 다래 최가 던지 세대기 최가 다들 잡아서 최세대 가사들 신비 가사들 차시 신다 되게라 최스라
Ja?
가사들 신 가사디 le shenbe kansa de pumbu shenda de la chusla de teba me rang ke mone yoban zinshik do ne lu sen da wa on ne sem sera jo tebe rang je yoba zing de ne de la oda a chugdan zin shena do dus ka tan shak yaris wa mari bani shayad mari bade ode hilala gu yar da swa.
And so, in this way, the grasping for a self of person and the grasping for a self of phenomena, this is the two types of ignorance. So this is that they are like if the person being merely imputed on the aggregates, or being merely a name. This is sometimes called it being a mere name, or be a mere appearance, or being a mere imputation by name, or mere imputation by concept, by conceptualization, by thought. Yeah. So to think that so this is how things actually exist, but to think that they exist different from that or opposite from that, this is actually what this ignorance is doing. So actually things exist only as being a mere appearance or being merely imputed by thought or by term. And ignorance things, it is not like that. It's the opposite from that. So things are existing such that when you would look for the imputed meaning, that you could find something. This is what this grasping for a self is doing. It is grasping a person or phenomena such that it is grasping it as them existing in a way that when you look for the imputed meaning, you would actually find something. Yeah. And so this is what you can say with regard to the person, first of all. But when you have a phenomenon that is different from the person, and that means this is expressed as the aggregates, then this is what the phenomena are about when we say grasping for a self of phenomena. So again, this appears like as if this phenomena, these aggregates, are not depending on something else, and that they have an independent nature, that they're self-empowered, you could say. and that they are findable when you look for the imputed meaning and so forth. And that they are something that is not a dependent arising, but they're independent. Yeah? So this is how both the person and the phenomena are grasped by this ignorance, which is a grasping for a self, either of person or phenomena.
나야 다들레샤 다들레 인지 당한조 다 가르상당고도 살라데 머리바 세데로 가사 당신데다 최그 당신데 머리바레샤스 머리바 세디 코에사와 치겐데 레샤스 다 코에사와 칸데 치기도 살라다 머리바데 가르 진숭에스 라데 가사디 폼불라 떼바메베 라옹거 여번 진숭아스 대나신제 최그 당신세디게 가사디 차시 가르 여바 대탐제 되나 가네 챤라 때문에 랑만진도 여반 징기도 와스 큰 지만은 신시 대모유네지 때문에 말아봤어 대똥바를 왔어 와 대똥바를 그 때문에 랑만진도 여반 징기도 때문에 랑만진도 여반 징베 깽기 다 어다 차당선라 소바되는 유몽 남한테 깨다데 두스가라 깨자 코쿠즈 남샤 용당 텐데레샤도 왔어
So therefore, again, this when we talk about marikba or ignorance, we talk about the grasping for a self of person and the grasping for a self of phenomena. And these two graspings are ignorance, are the two forms of ignorance, and these are then that which acts as the root of samsara. And again, how does this kind of ignorance apprehend, or what does the grasping mean? What is it grasping at when we talk about grasping for a self of person and so forth? It grasps the person as being not depending on the aggregates, but being independent, self-powered, or in its own power. And with regard to phenomena, it is apprehending phenomena as not being depending on its parts, but again, being independent instead. So actually, how things actually exist is empty of that. Yeah, there's an absence of this kind of existence. So this is how they actually exist. But this kind of ignorance is grasping things in this way, that things are independent. And once you have that, out of this kind of grasping for these two self of person, self of phenomena, then there comes the arising of all the afflictions. And on the basis of that, you engage into all kind of actions, karma, and on that basis, all of samsara unfolds.
다들네 양두스가 직사다 담바를 줘봐스 찍으라고도 랑은에 줘봐스 찍으라고도 랑게 생게 줘봐스라고도 대권한이도 줘봐스한다 근데 남랑 지금 망보자 떠바면 랑은에 줘봐 생섭다 망보지 라기도 대가 전다 무시 가라였으나 머리가 되는 진주 되게 시기하래 머리밭에 가서나 가사 더보디 풍부라 되는 따와 쌈치 마도지 풍부 나로네 째네 풍부 차셔 가와 째네 니도 짜오네 요 말했대 머리배기 다 가서 가사 쓰지 나 쓰러인데 나 쓰지 다 셈대 나데메 되네 르데 나데메 더바지 바라도 지는 나시 소용부터 좋아 때문에 랑원치도 이해되겠지. 랑원에 여것이 숨는 거야. 근데 있다. 근데 숨을 때에다 템바 줍슬라 템바 줍은 진슬라네 다라래. 어야 되는 랑원에 여번 진슬은 다라래. 다데 다코나니도 줍은 진슬은 다라래. 저단 데데긴 짐바데 다 가르쳐도 사람 말해봐지. 다 말해본 진슬 되르다. 머리에 진짜스나 되다. 머리에 가서 송발했으나 드네 송아르다. 시즌에서다 싸우는 맞은 게 송아르다 돈다.
So then we have different ways of expressing certain forms of existence. So you say being established ultimately, being established from its own side, being established by its own defining characteristics, being established in suchness or in thatness, yeah, or in reality. So this, all of this is describing the mode of apprehension or the mode of grasping of ignorance. Yeah. So actually, it's not like that. Actually, it's the opposite from that. But ignorance grasps persons or phenomena in this way. So actually, a person, for example, is merely imputed. And if you look for it, you cannot find the person. But ignorance is perceiving the person or the self such that it is not the mind, it is not the body, but it is somehow in between body and mind in a way that it is independent and not relying on anything else. So this is this way how ignorance perceives or grasps in this case the person. So another word is that ignorance grasps things as being truly established. Yeah, so that things are really existing from their own side, that they're really kind of existing by their own defined characteristics and so forth. And so what this means is that the way how ignorance apprehends or grasps at persons or phenomena is not in accordance with the actual mode of abidance, how things actually abide.
나야 다 드레스다. 제가 안저 아 도즈로를 차와이나. 나 나스라인데 나세데 풍부 다 르심스라는도 나저 풍부로이데 차냐 텔라 때네 딱와 잠치그레스라데 낭잠치레라고요. 낭잠치레 로 따잠치레 라 민기 파샤 잠치레 된 멤베 실제간으로는 라이기면 나오라 금도 대나신제 내 루스 랍윤데 내 루데 내 루기 차샤라 차샤 망고실라 때네 고파 민따잠 지레샤마도 디밍기다 현다자 라이 줄면도 와
민신의 민tilation.
민따잠 저게 아 텔레시베 되게 민마다베 풍부지 내 루스 자간으로는 루기 차샤이든도 가와도 자간으로는 라이면도 왔어.
So again, this in a nutshell, the I is that which is having simply the five agates as the basis of imputation and is merely imputed on the on this aggregates.
얘기지 마.
What's there? Seems okay still now, it says here. Okay. So this I or self is or the I is imputed on the aggregates, and it is merely imputed by thought. It is merely positing a name or term outwards. Yeah, there's this word par that is merely you could say projecting. You could say it's merely projecting a name, and if you are looking for a person or a self that is existing in any other way, then you will not find anything. Yeah, there's nothing to be had that is this I that is existing in a different way from being merely imputed and so forth. So in the same way, when we take the body as an example of the aggregates, here also the body has a great many parts, and it is dependent on these parts, and in dependence on these parts, it is merely imputed by a name or by a term. And again, if you are trying to find something else that is the body, apart from just being imputed and a term on this part, you will not find anything.
되는 신체는 잘라 가래 뭐 가래 최신수바 얘나야 최신수의 뭐 때 그랑게 로랑 저거 쉬지 여봐 얘나야 그 딱전 세간도나 예요 그 민기 파샤 잠지 로 민기 파다 잠지 레마도 저기 되네 지 차셔 되긴 안해 코트 지 자가도나 라야 말레스 워치버스
So in the very same way, if you talk about any kind of a thing or any kind of object, maybe something you can buy or that you can use and so forth. So this respective object or thing of good, you could say good, might be appearing in your mind as being something very amazing or very, very, very strongly present and so forth. But actually, it is also simply merely imputed. It is just imputed such that if you would look for the imputed meaning, you would not find anything. Yeah. So again, it is merely the imputation outwards of a name of a term. It is merely imputed by conception. If you look for the imputed meaning, you find nothing.
아야 나도 썼어 원아서 대답이기 미시바 머리바데 간시나 사시 자질레스와 머리바니 대코나니 디바 아 대코나니 리바 가삼 라 머리바 라구메다스 텔레 셴바산레 머리바 라구야 마레스 다 가이스나 간다 무드쇼지 와 간다 무드쇼 초 간사감 쳐라 미네 다 랑게 칭이 좀 짐바고 소거들다
So we are here now on page 33 in the middle where it says Ona in the Tibetan, and here in the at the end of page 18 in the English translation it says, so what exactly is such ignorance or confusion? As Lama Tsongkhapa's great commentary states, ignorance is not simply the absence of knowledge of reality, nor is it merely something other than that. Rather, it is diametrically opposed to this knowledge of that reality. Having observed the person or phenomena, it grasps them as being established by their own characteristics.
그래서 그것에 시에송바다라 머리바네 아야 단데 머리바네스 머리베 도저 리바 데 까참 데 마레스 머리바스 라가 마레스 민바 짬라 민조데스와 제레 간사 머리스라데 데 마인바 까sam들라 제가 마레스 민자와데 데 까sam들라 조고야 마레 준세 데 까sam들라 조고야 마레스 오데르다 셰 전화 소바 셰 템바 민바 짬라 민조바 템벤 도조데르 준스라고 야레스 다드네 머리바데야 지바 민바 짬라 마인바 지바 이시긴 간다 무든 쇼데라 데라 머리바스라고 야레스 대양처럼 그 인우데 정신의 동바레스 최근에서 타도데 다 정신의 동바레스 르 로가된 진윤데 다들은 도서 따다죠 추버왕래 정신이 예버즈바인 소들다 하고서 다 내주데 내주데라 때문에 가이스나 정신의 동바인 바人性的动法是我的那个的，人性的动法时间得了，其他话是，是吧？时间得了，其他话前边一些是得那个的，没有那是时间得了，其他话前边一些是呢，没有那是时间得了，我的现在其他话写吧，可能你等得个人吧是，我那是得个人吧，知道吧？어디를 시안에 지다와 킴바 서 대코나이 킴바 소 라단 딜라고야레스
Yes, we should continue in the text here with where it says, this means that ignorance is not posited as simply the absence of knowledge, which is itself the opposite of ignorance, nor as simply that which is not knowledge. The Abhidhamma Kosha states, ignorance is like the ill-intentioned, like lying, etc. Lying is not posited as simply the absence of truth, but as antithetical to truth. And it's the same of ignorance, which is not mere unknowing, but must be posited as diametrically opposed to knowledge or wisdom. Opposed to knowledge or wisdom. Beside the fact that the nature of all phenomena is devoid of inherence due to an incorrect cognitive apprehension, they are grasped as possessing inherence. Their actual mode of being is empty of inherence, and that which knows this absence of inherence is a cognition that knows the mode as the true mode of being exactly as it is, or rather a cognition that knows reality, a wisdom of the mode that knows factuality or reality as it is. So what this says from one point of view is that ignorance is not just not knowing, but it is grasping at the opposite of that what is actually the case. Yeah, so it is not just not knowing that things are empty of inexistence, but it is actively grasping for inherent existence. And so it has here this word mode. This is how it is translated in Tibetan. It says like as it is. Yeah, so as it is a way to say that this wisdom that is mentioned here at the end of this paragraph is understanding the things as they are. It means it understands the actual mode of abidance, how things exist.
나드스레샤 다도 산다야 대전에스다 정신기 다메바 정신기 다메바슬라데 라문에 메바 뜨줍 임바 때문에 라원샹기 똥바 어디 정신 다메바스 라원 다메바 다메치 민다스로 다메 스르다 미규기 다데 가레스로데 라원 와데레 라문에 줘바데레 뭐다 템바 줘바 데레 데메스라고 야레스 대코나니 스라데 대메 대카바 다랑 대코나니라고 야레스 내서 뭐뭐 데레스
And then it says, as for its meaning, we refer to selflessness as the absence of an inherent or independent self, and we speak of reality as the simple absence of the object of negation and of emptiness as established by the simple separation from the object of negation. Yeah, so right, this is called, I guess, tekonani is translated here as reality. Yeah, so it says we speak of reality as the simple absence of the object of negation. Yeah, so what it means that all these different ways how ignorance is wrongly apprehending or grasping things, the absence of that, yeah, is this reality. So it is that things do not exist from their own side, that things do not exist independently. That they do not exist truly established and so forth.
도나가제 다메스디 다메스라데 가이스나 떠바메베 라원칭 주베 다데메스 떠메 라원칭 주베 다데메스 텔라고도 마도아치기 타야도 유베 다데메스 사원이네 라게 빈두스 와 뚜주그 다데 나세데 내 풍불라 때나 따바 쌈시네 되면 나한테 메스라고 면도스 내 류베스라고 면도 내 류도 내그 차실라 때나 따바 쌈도 요레스 캉바스라나 캉베 차실라 때나 캉바스를 따네 따바 쌈도 요레스 이네 차실 대다 그 때도 째간 조나 니주 메스 계시 디셰기도 다 메스데 어디 계시도스.
And so in a nutshell, when we're talking about selflessness, yeah, or the non-existence of self, we are talking about that there is no self that is independent without relying on something else. That kind of self does not exist. Yeah. So this specific self is not there when we say selflessness. But with regard to the existence of a self that is a conventional self, yeah, that is a convention, we're not saying that this kind of self, that a conventional self, does not exist. That's an existent. Yeah, there's something that does exist. So we're not saying that this is a non-existent when we say selfless. And this is so because it is actually something that exists. Or in other words, we are not saying that there is a lack of a self that is merely imputed on its aggregates. Yeah, so we're not. That's not the meaning of selflessness. So we're not saying that there is no such self, because such a self actually does exist. There is a self that is merely imputed on the five aggregates. So that's not the meaning of selflessness. The meaning of selflessness is that there is no self that is independent without relying on anything else. And in the same way, you can look at the body. So the body is related to the body parts. So when we say that there is no self of phenomenon, no self of the body in this case, we would say that there is no such body that is independent without depending on its parts. But with regard to a body that is merely imputed on these body parts, this is not something that doesn't exist. This is something that's existent. Same with a house. We are not saying there is no house. There is a conventional house. There's a house that is merely imputed on the parts of the house. But when we say that there's a selflessness of phenomena, in this case, a selflessness of that house, we are talking about that this house does not exist independent without depending on its parts. Yeah. So, in other words, these things all exist as a mere imputation. But if you would try to find them in analysis, you look for them, you will not find anything. You will not get anything in this search.
계속 다 매슬라데 다 매가 매슬라 봐야나 다 매스베 다데 때문에 랑화신 게 저거 다들에 대 매슬라면 나야 매슬라 봐야나 나들 로준 셔고 준세 가면도 나도 레제 송고 준세면도 나도 깔래 잡고 준세면도 근데 그 타야들이 ပဲ나가 나서도 예바 인도서 그 예배 왕게 나 대원데 나 동행민데 나내 대회 교두고 내 동행 교대 내가 서고요 가인스나 나 동행 되기면도 나 대원 되기도스 내 집도 참 연구도 와
So, if the selflessness or the non-existence of a self would mean that I don't exist, yeah, the non-existence of I, so this is actually not the case. But when we say selflessness or the non-existence of a self, we're talking about the non-existence of a self that is independent and not relying on anything. Yeah. So apart from this, that is negated. This kind of specific kind of self, yeah, is negated that this exists. But we are not refuting any. So if this kind of if this kind of selflessness would mean that I don't exist, then there is no point why I would have to engage into the effort of guarding my actions, or make all kind of effort and maybe a difficult task by practicing and so forth, because I don't exist. But that's not the meaning. Yeah? The selflessness is just saying that this specific kind of self, a self that is independent without relying on anything else, does not exist. But the conventional self, yeah, or the self that exists conventionally, is an existent phenomenon. So there is such a self that exists, and therefore it makes sense that I guard my actions, that I make effort with a path, and so forth, that I try to understand emptiness and so forth, because as I exist and as this kind of conventional self exists, therefore there's also the wish to be happy and the wish not to suffer.
나들에 제상당 때는 따바 정도 나라서 통한 대탐제 예스로와 때는 따바 정도 예스 이내야 나라서 때문에 라완신의 여바지 능기도 된나와 따도 매세대 대시시 계신 분에 군인기 아 여바당 때밤에 봐 여바니디 때다 가지 예스라도 당해도 예 때문에 예스라나 라완이요 다들 띵용신미도 왔어 매스라도 때문에 라완증 주바데매 대 매스기야 마다지 타야도 여가 쉐되게 매스라고 어떻게 돼 개발도 지신 거요
So whatever we are seeing, whatever we are interacting with, all these phenomena exist independent by mere imputation, and as such, they do exist. But they do not appear to us in this way. They appear to us to exist in a different way. And that means that, so they appear to us that they're actually not merely imputed, but that they're independent, that they don't have to rely on other things, especially on imputation. Yeah? So this is how they appear to us. And that means that they do not exist in the way that they appear to us. Yeah, and that's the point. That what is negated is that things would exist in the way that they appear to us. So therefore, there is a great difference between something existing and something existing without relying on anything else. That's two different things. If something exists, it exists conventionally. Yeah, as a conventional existent, and if something exists would exist as without relying on anything, then it would be something that is independent and that is existing independently without imputation and so forth. Yeah? So such a thing does not exist. So as such a thing does not exist, we're talking about that not existing, or this kind of self not existing. There's a selflessness. So apart from negating this kind of self, we are not negating in that the existence of a self or of a certain phenomenon. Yeah? It exists, but it exists merely imputed, it exists merely as a convention.
结账选的他们这人生的美是老人嘛多，太阳的美是的老么多啊是，其实太阳的美呢，大概这个的是了，对太阳的美呢，来就这讲太阳的美，连这这国也没有掐死，这工作送也美死了吧人呢，得了一级结果也没有掐死， 这趟参完没有掐着过的，都是个上了去，在堂前太阳都有，在堂前太阳都采买住，是吧？太阳都采买住，哦，在可能你都采买太阳没住，但把住吧就采买没住。
So all phenomena do not exist inherently. But it's not that they do not exist conventionally. Yeah, this is not the case. They do exist conventionally. If they would not exist even conventionally, then that would mean that also the cause and effect of actions does not exist at all. And therefore, there would be no need for us to guard our mind with regard to or to take into consideration the cause and effect of our actions. And also, if things would not exist even conventionally, then also the three jewels would be non-existent, totally non-existent. And then there would be no point in trying to generate faith or conviction with regard to the three jewels. Yeah, so all of this would become non-existent. But different from that, actually, all of these things do exist, and they exist conventionally. And they are kind of established conventionally, and they are also conventionally established by valid cognition.
啊，这是不是？单独拿出来的嘛？人性的大灭霸，让为大灭霸啦，让为大灭霸啦，大灭是明大，在可能一起感谢动脏适当，感谢动脏适当，感谢当啊，感谢当，只要脏是个多的下边，东巴尼斯，老张得的是，真正内陆的，在可能你当东巴尼下边写了的。다 가서라 동료도에 실업스라고 내가 동료도에 실업스잖아라고 그래 대셔받으라 동료도에 실업스라고 해야 했어 남의 도에 시더니 실업스잖아 타야 돼야 자그래 했어 봐
Okay. So then Geshe read out a paragraph on page 19. This is in the middle. It says, as for its meaning. Yeah, this is where we are. It says, as for its meaning on page 19. As for its meaning, we refer to selflessness as the absence of an inherent or independent self. and we speak of reality as the simple absence of the object of negation, and of emptiness as established by the simple separation from the object of negation. Wisdom, which knows the mode of being, reality or emptiness, is evoked as the wisdom that realizes emptiness and the wisdom that realizes selflessness. Last one.
그래서 도자 실업 대행 간대 리바들 다 가르쳐나 대단 딱전 조양게 간다들라 머리 봤을래 여러분 단 간대 리바데 템바르 여바 숨기도 다 여바 숨기도 어 제가 실업 대행 간대 리바들라 다 템바르 여바 징기도 다 여바 징기도 셔더마 제마 따와 될라 머리 봤을라고 예스 머리 봤들라 준다 고마 다 준다 고마 편주 원도잖아 간사가 던지상도 마세 최고 던지양 다 머리바디 샤주고도 제가 엄마 탄주 로라 머리바스 라인데 야나 간사가 던질로 고야래 야나 최고 던질로 고야래 탐절라다 준다 엄마도 임바이나 렌젤라 몽베 머리바스 챤데라고 야래 근데 이제 렌젤라 몽 댕이지다 요르데 니네들 머리바스 타야디 뭐 탄주에 자기야 말해봤을라데 시제 니루 타르도데 말해배차네 대산에다 말해봤을라고 야로 대간다 딱저도 숨을 차네.
And it says here regarding the wisdom. Just a moment, we lost it. No, regarding this ignorance in relation to the higher Prasangika system, it is not posited as merely the grasping of the personal self, but also the grasping of the self of phenomena, and so forth. So what this is talking about here is that the idea about what is ignorance, the Tibetan term marikpa, so maybe there's other things that are also translated as ignorance, but this one specific, marikpa. This marikpa is for Prasangika has exactly these two forms. It is grasping for a self of person and grasping for a self of phenomena. Okay, so the point here was that from the Prasangika point of view, at this highest school of Buddhist philosophy, they're using the term marikpa, or ignorance, in a very specific way. They only use it for the two graspings for a self, the grasping for a self of persons and the grasping for a self of phenomena. Only these two types of grasping for a self are called by the term ignorance or marikpa. And so this seems to be different from lower schools below the Prasangikas, because there they would also use the term marikpa for being confused or unclear about cause and effect of actions. So this kind of confusion or not knowing would also be called ignorance by the term marikpa. So in Prasangika, this is not the case. In Prasangika, ignorance is an ignorance with regard to the final mode of abidance of an object of comprehension.
This one? Those are shatabane. That is Maribatelas to the conservative Legaba Georgians. Children cancer a chini jobanis long jobabe children cancer see what she did long jobabosna cancer long chasna cancer deletions. What doesn't take any mother made that long chachata long jobabochiore what they chana children cancer nije Dining Yawa Zamji Mado Chigi Kansa Danzida Chug Danzini Zinzula Tache, man. Niga get Tome Ranch the Yavan Zimba the Chibuchicanis.
So the text continues to make this distinction between grasping for a self of person and grasping of a self of phenomena, such that one is grasping for a self with regard to a utilizer, and one is grasping for a self of for a self with regard to that what is utilized. Yeah, somebody who is using resources and that what is resources, or somebody who's enjoying something and something that is the resources that's enjoyed. Yeah, so the five aggregates would be the resources and so forth. So this is the distinction why we talk about why this distinction is made at all. Yeah, that there is a person and there is phenomena. So one is singled out as the one who uses something, a utilizer, a user, and the other one, the phenomena, is that what is not the user, but that what is used, what is utilized. So there is this distinction between these two type of phenomena: one the users, one that what is used, and on that basis, these two types of ignorance are presented. Yeah, grasping for a self of person, or grasping for a self of the utilizer, grasping for a self of phenomena, grasping for a self of that what is utilized, and that's the distinction. There is no distinction between these two on the basis of how the respective object is apprehended or grasped. It is grasped in the same way. Both of this grasping for a self are grasping for the respective object being independently existent.
다데네 차소 뉴모 집에 가봐야 쓰고다 지리 차소 개와나 차소 뉴모 개와나 쓰고다 롱치바베 다라차베 차바치다 롱치제제들이 소소의 풍소라 소베 차베 차바치잖아 드리시 끼기도 뭐 대셔도 랑게 롱치제자들다 담아라 쉬어요 아다 아 강바요르 모자요르 둘로요르 다도 막 가르이네지요 내가 요르 땀요르 다 담만다지요 와서다 롱치제자들 되네 나가 지금은 청아 떨어지나 소속에 청아 납들어
Okay.
따로냐 돼야지 너들려다 대사 강바다 경에 그 고에다 너저 표시 같은 거는 요새 못하던 게는 다 가리나로 된처럼라 녀월 니니 돌아서 가리여 봐야나 대다 차소야 대다는 차소 기기도 처유 대단 테레스 템버 셴베 대신양 겨워다 처유 대다베 때문에 라마치는 여봐 전진이잖네 된다지 용도 없어요 겨워방스
Okay.
네네
So then, yeah, I don't know if you find this, but it's in this longer paragraph. It says towards the end of like there's the last paragraph and then the penultimate paragraph. It says in the end to this, it says, whenever attachment and other afflictions arise in general. Yeah, Geshe is talking about this part. Yeah, whenever attachment and other afflictions arise in general, then there is attachment that clings to the self of the experiencer. Attachment that clings to the object's experience, such as aggregates, etc., and likewise attachment that clings to what we possess, such as our mala, our home, our clothes, our utensils, or even our relatives, etc. Yeah. So what you need here, first of all, you have this kind of grasping for a self with regard to the person, to yourself. And on that basis, then you have you can generate the afflictions. Yeah, so the afflictions come from this wrong perception of ignorance. And so then when you have attachment and other afflictions arising in general, then there is attachment that clings to the self. So you can have attachment to yourself, which is it says here the experiencer. That's a good translation as well, or the utilizer. Then attachment that clings to the object experienced, such as the aggregates. So in this case, you would cling to your own aggregates, like your body, your mind, feeling, and so forth. And then all the other things that you are possessing. Yeah, likewise, attachment that clings to what we possess, such as our mala. So this is obviously an object that is taken out of the Buddhist context, where practitioners use a mala, or we call it sometimes a rosary. Our home, the very place where we live, our clothes, our utensils. So the utensils can have like your car, or actually Geshe mentioned many things. He said you can be attached to your work, you can be attached to your reputation, and so forth. And then he says, or even our relatives, etc. Yeah, so all of this develops in this way.
나도 그렇지 차유되던 테러 다 덴버 신베 덴시야 겨와다 양 겨와다 강사람이 차당당스 다 리질라 당화대 되는스 용도스 강사 롱쳐바고 대 롱제제 출라 메베 차당소 깨베스 어디에 깨이베 깨는데 머리바 데라 강사가 다든지메 머리바스 최고 다든지메 머리바스 니 이게 고단데 도스가 총아래 그렇죠
So then it says, with regard to all these objects of attachment arises the essential conception that adheres to their true existence. Yeah, in other words, you have this with regard to all these objects, you have the grasping for them as being truly existent or independently existent. Since attachment and aversion observing the person. So first of all, it talks here not only about attachment, but also about aversion. Yeah, so you can have an attachment to some people, aversion to other people, and so forth. Yeah, all of this arises first of all from this essential conception that adheres to true existence. So since attachment and aversion observing the person, attachment and aversion, etc., observing the objects of enjoyment of this person who experiences them. It is said that ignorance is twofold: ignorance which grasps the self of persons and ignorance which grasps the self of phenomena. So the point is that His Holiness is explaining here why we have here this twofold presentation of grasping for a self. Why is there this distinction in grasping for a self of person and grasping for a self of phenomena?
강사가 다든지메 머리바 데라 나다 나오냐바 기세게 되네 런주기 나다 나이와라 메네 다다심베 안지데 직다당스
아니야.
다 런주기 나다 나이바 서로 런주기 나다 나이바 사질라 메네 덴디지 런시 요반 진르디 델란 직다스라우레 다드네 나다 나이바 간드시 간드 나다 나이바 쓰는 얘가 타이도 요래 타이도 예베 쳐데 라 민도 따섬지 요래데 민도 따섬 예베 쳐데 민도 따바점도 많이 봐라 투모만에 들루면 조샹해지 따라 때문에 조샹해지 라 근데 라문에 요번 진데베 그는 짐바들라 직달라버스 직달들라 야와라 지니시네 나랑원에 두번 짐바직다 나이바랑원에 두번 짐바스 직셰 냥 나이바데 미상하라 미네 네스랑원에 요번 징이라마도 네르 네지지데 디체시 손에 랑원에 요번 징면도스
Ngairang chikta yorba nge lula chikta lapi marwa. So then it says, this is the page 20. It is necessary to know how to make distinctions regarding this ignorance which grasps a personal self, in the sense that there are these two: the view of the transitory collection as a grasping of the self which adheres to a fanciful self by observing the me and mine, which are the objects of the feeling of me and mine in its own continuum, and so forth. Yeah. So what this is talking about is the objects of I and mine in your own continuum. So if this is grasped, if this I and mine in your own continuum is grasped as being inhandly established or inhandly existent, that's the view of the transitory collection. Yeah. So again, what is going on here? This I and mine do exist conventionally, do exist as being merely imputed a name. So they exist in this way. But then here, if there is a grasping that is seeing them as not being merely imputed, then you have here an apprehender that grasps in this way, and this apprehender is the view of the transitory collection. And this view of the transitory collection has then two types. One is a view of a transitory collection that apprehends the I, and one that apprehends the mine. And so, with regard to this mind, one has to be very clear that one has to leave it unqualified. It is just mind. It is grasping the mind to be inherently existent. It is not that it is grasping my body, or that what is actually mine as being inherently existent, or not being merely imputed, because that would become a grasping for a self of person and not a grasping for a self. It would become a grasping for a self of phenomena and not a grasping for a self of person, and it would no longer be the view utensil collection. So the view utensil collection is grasping the I and mine, just mine, without qualification, not my body, but I and mine as being not merely imputed, but being inherently existent. And so this is an I and mine including your own continuum.
그것이 다되네 규현도 주베 강사라 메네 다도 지바들라 던지럽 쇼그르데 지다스라고 말해스 치마데 지다 미냐 강사가 던지상 그래스 시주 대야지 시고도 스와
So then it continues here saying, so that there is another form of grasping for a self that says here, there is the grasping which adheres to a self by observing a person of another continuum. Yeah, so if it's a person, you have a grasping for a self that is observing a person in another continuum. Of these two, the second is not the view of the necessary collection, but constitutes a grasping for the self of persons. So if you are grasping for a person that is grasping is inherently existent for a person that is included in somebody else's continuum, that's a grasping for the self of person, but it is not the view of the necessary collection. That's it.
다드는 디리스 룩현다 민자와르스 다 가인스는 오마탄주의 룩데라 준다 오마 렌주바 맨제다 민자와 강사가 던스라 최고 던지니 미바상기 캐바치기요레스 진다들라 차라이베 캐바디 치기요 말레스 진날 차라 민두스 니가 돈에 라문에 여반 짐바 지부 지견을 샤스 지게 강사라 메네 다동 징게도 스는 라문에 여반 징게도 최근 던지되기 네 강사라 신배 최실의 메네 풍소랍 드네질 되게 최실의 메네 네 라문에 여반 징게 다두번 징게도 니게 지반이게 다도나 직단이 던지다 된 최근 던지 니게 가르치는 단단히 여바치 징게도스 징베 징즈치바라 차자 대차네 차라조투고 말레스 간사가 단지 라바레스 랍투고 말에 최근 단지 참모스다 라야야마로 징즈치부 치견라샤 코 케시가 토네 캬바체자마도 데일레 캬바 멘도스.
So then the next paragraph reads, unlike others, in this system, the difference between, unlike others means like other Buddhist philosophical systems different from the Prasangikas. This is the others here. Unlike others, in this system, which is the Prasangikas, the difference between the grasping of a personal self and the grasping of a self of phenomena is made solely in terms of the objects of observation. So in other words, what is grasped as being inherently existent? So in other words, there's a grasping for the respective object, be it a person, be it another phenomenon, as existing from its own side. Yeah? So this kind of grasping. So these different objects of observation are grasped in the same way, but you can make a distinction by way of there being different objects of observation. So it says, unlike others in this system, the difference between the grasping of the personal self and the grasping for the self of phenomena is made solely in terms of the object of observation and not in terms of gross and subtle modes of apprehension. Yeah. So the mode of apprehension in both cases, grasping for a self of person and grasping for self of phenomena, is the same. So there is no difference in one being coarse, one being more subtle. literally meaning it is not that the grasping for a self of person is gross and grasping for a self of phenomena is subtle. It is not the case, not for this system. For them, both graspings are the same in subtlety. So this is so because if the former grasps a self by observing a person and the latter grasps a self by observing a phenomenon, included in aggregates and others, their mode of grasping is the same in that they grasp existence from the side of the object. So as their mode of apprehension is the same in both of these grasping for a self, therefore there is no difference in one being coarse and one being subtle. They're both subtle, but they grasp in the same way.
마야 다 그랬지. 대양사 들려서 대양 균도스. 근데 나우냐 벌로 샤윤데 나스데 로에 차윤데 당부 풍불로에 샤고레스. 풍불로에 샤와라 때네 나로에 나스 야바세 용거레스. 봐. 다들 가서 빼샤바이나 즉 가소라다 판에수 미라고 지지 용거이나 토마는 미인다 미양 하마고 들으인다 미인다 그 갈래갈래서는 곧 미래샤스 그 갈래갈래서는 곧 미래샤스 전에 증거도가 제가 당부 풍부들로에도 숨 들으가네 최근에 다 같이 살았어 이나 가서 단지들 갈래갈 소년도다 대래샤스 만직 바도 가서 지기야 말았어 제가 풍부로에도 숨어 샤네 나오냐도 롯게 바란스 베나스 디나를 공사초게 된때 가르쳐는 거였으나 다시 들어오지베 메자와 심부지 가인롱 데로라 샤와는 뭐라디 수부들로이 차고레스 데라샤네 신이 미 풍부데 로이 샤와라드네 아코 다시 레도 와서지 내지 태양 거레스 나 어디서
Then it says in the next paragraph, furthermore, if in general the notion of me appears to our awareness, the aggregates first appear to our cognition, so that we then have the notion of me. So what this is talking about is when you stand somewhere and you see something in the distance that looks like a human being, but you're not sure if it is a human being or not. Maybe it's an animal. So at that time, you just see the aggregates. Yeah, this is what you first perceive, and then as this phenomenon comes closer, you can discern it is a human being, and as this person comes even closer, you understand, oh, it's that and that human being. Yeah, it's that person. I know this person. You understand who it is as it comes closer. But the very first thing that you will encounter is maybe in some distance the aggregates. So therefore, because you're first encountering the aggregates, also you're grasping for a self of phenomena is what is generated first. And then on that basis, later on, there is the generation of grasping for a self of person. Did I say this right? So first there's a generation of a grasping for a self of phenomena, and then later on that basis there is a generation of a grasping for a self of person. So His Holiness here takes the following example. It says, take the example of someone called Tashi Döndrup. If he appears to our awareness as a corpulent or tall man, it is because the aggregates of this man first manifest themselves as objects of our cognition, and once the aggregates of this man have appeared as objects of our awareness, we pronounce the name Tashi. So what this therefore also means is that as we are first interacting with the aggregates, means with phenomena, we first have a grasping for a self of phenomena, and then later on we pronounce the name Tashi, and we interact with the person, and then here we have a grasping for a self of person.
다 되는 것이 가르친거야래서 토마치가 단지디기야래스 다 디게와라 되네 간사가 단지디기야래스 되네 간사 단지디게와라 되네 란초라 차 신조라 당외 되네 니모 남라 되게 용구야래 되라되네 레마무사기야래 샤브레 되라되네 코알 쿠야래스 코코다 두사래레스 다 코쿠즈 디 두스카라 숭에디 나라도 도전에 계제대 숭구야래 나존에 셰바이나 치워주고 바돌롱고 깨워 주고 세나 고고즈 송어를 마다 저기 단에 드는 시전에 배제 송매 와라 저래
لا
송구야 말았다
상관 قبل
아 상라미 가서이나 다 치워주고 봐도 lon고 깨워 주고 세 다도 우스가래 고고당 좀 송구야를 쓰라 제den잖아
In a nutshell, what is going on here, that first you're generating a grasping for the self of phenomena by way of these aggregates. Then on that basis, and depending on that, you're generating a grasping for a self of person. And then on the basis of this grasping for a self of person, with regard to somebody that is from your group, you generate attachment, and with regard to somebody who is from a different group, you generate anger or aversion. In other words, all the afflictions come from that. And once this has been generated, you engage with these afflictions in actions, and you produce karma. And on that basis, all the existence form of samsara comes about and unfolds. So this is how the development of samsara is described here in our context. And then I understood Geshe saying that in highest yoga tantra you would not present it like that, but you would talk in terms of that death becomes the dharmakaya, and the bardo becomes the what's it called? The
치와 봐도 깨워 치와 봐도 깨워 스케싱
die Kühlgutanglasse die Diskussion die Tusanga.
나 yap다 들으시려고 그래 다행히 잘하면 전화하는 시대래
So they talk about death, bardo, and rebirth, and then this is referred to as the dharmakaya, then the enjoyment body, and then the emanation body.
나도 그래 다 들으시는데 아 당한 좀 뭐신 거야 돼 견제 가라서라도 뭐 이제 좀 뭐신 거야 돼 오다 되래 뭐 때나 들으다스 아주 돈이 세대 같이 잠시 계신 버리베 슬라데 되니 녀모 세베 정도 계신 버리 슬라브레 녀모도 세발라 녀모 가르 세고서 머리 받 세고 머리 받으라 니시자 강사도 저거도 지지 니시자 됐어요 대세발라 머리 봤을 때 간대질 쓰기도 해 사실은 머리 밖에 진주도 간대질 해배 대모빈에서도 마티바 가르 숨도 해 대기 되는 차단 와서 왔다가 교 간대 시기도 해 대왕가 내 간대 싸기도 했어 어떻게 내저 되게 되잖아 먼저 가에서나 아 도르시네 되게 도르상문에 임바치와 시고야 란제 네 되거든 란자 타투바 됐다 가인스나 돈이 쉬고 다던다 돈이 마시는 안조 너무 되게 가 진짜 봉투 맞다 어디서래
So what we really need to take away from this, what we really need to be able to identify is why emptiness is so important. And so it is so important because it's important for clearing away all the afflictions. And within the afflictions, what you want to actually clear away is the very root, which is ignorance. Yeah? We want to clear away ignorance. Then also we need to take aware that this ignorance has two types. There's an ignorance which is a grasping for a self of person, and an ignorance that is a grasping for a self of phenomena. And so further on, when this thing that we really want to eliminate or clear away is this ignorance, then the question comes like, what kind of phenomenon is this ignorance? What is this ignorance all about? What is its mode of apprehension? In what way is it not in accordance with how things actually are? In what way does it become the factor that brings about the arising of attachment and aversion and so forth? Yeah? So all these kind of questions we need to explore in order to really understand what is this ignorance. And when we talk about that, we need to understand what is the object of abandonment, the object to be adopted. So the object of abandonment is this ignorance. This is the final object of abandonment, and the object to be adopted is to come into a state where you know about, understand emptiness, because this is the very method by which you can abandon the afflictions, especially ignorance. Yeah. So this is their method, it's the only method. So that's why you really need to take on this kind of phenomenon and knowledge that realizes emptiness.
야, 나는 아주 되셨어.
And then we stop here for today.
맥스 보고 창조 선조라고 제
마귀의 반응의 유지,
개바냐고
매바양,
오늘
공로 배와 수,
가래라고
고를
신나서
신나서
펜다
대화 말을 정외는
그래서
친구한테
땐생겨서 이 샤베 시대바로 댕겨로 제 뭐야?
Thank you so much, Geshe-la.
Thank you.
Tachin. Thank you, Christoph, Alonia, and Rafa.
Thank you, Geshe-la.
Thank
you.
everybody for attending.
Adiós.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Geshe-la.
Yes,
Pujishina.
Gracias.
Ciao, ciao.
ciao, ciao.
Thank you, everybody.
Bonne
Good
nuit.
night.
Merci.
Good night. Good night.
오, 심장난 거. 이게 훨씬 더.